Don't wish for it. Go for it. Dive, move, start, act. Trust me, it's the only way to get there.
Hey guys, welcome back to the BVOY Project channel. Thank you very much for being part of it, and thank you for the shares, the likes, the comments. Really helpful. And if you still feel that any of this information is helpful to anyone, please feel free to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the content when we share it again. If you're here for the first time, this is the BVOY Project channel where we talk about being the best version of yourself and how we can do that. So hopefully you'll find some of this information useful for yourself in business and in your personal life. So our topic today is building your self-belief, especially when results are slow. Building your self-belief when the results are slow, and the concept of trusting in the process. Now, this is something that is easy to understand from the point that we say the topic itself, because this is a lot of people's challenge here. We spoke last week about detaching from the outcomes, but today, sounding like a contradicting thing to a certain extent, is building your self-belief based on the fact that the results are not necessarily coming through the way that you're expecting them, or if the results are slow, you need to start building your self-belief. It sounds like we're reattaching the outcome, but this is exactly the same thing. It's actually complementary. What we're saying is the results will give you feedback, but what will keep you going if the results are not necessarily what you expect? This is what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so building your self-belief when the results are slow. Now, there's three aspects I'd like us to go through. So firstly, it's shifting your focus, and then it's protecting your mindset, and then staying consistent. These are the things that are very important in being able to build your self-belief and keep yourself going, especially when the results are not as you expected. Because this is a common thing, and I'm not talking just about the business side, it's also in your personal life as well. Sometimes you'll put quite a lot of effort. The results don't necessarily come as you expect them to, based on the effort that you put in. And the question is, how do I keep going? How do I keep going when the results are not necessarily giving me what I'm hoping for, and it's not giving me a reason to keep going? So this is what we're going to be talking about today. Building that self-belief and relying on the self-belief rather than relying on the results. Okay, now the first one that I mentioned is shift your focus. And within shifting your focus, there's three aspects I want us to go through. Number one is measure your small wins. Now, I've said before in a few videos that the success is not in the destination. Success is in the journey. And when we say success is in the journey, it's holding on to the small wins, the tiny little wins that you have. The fact that you woke up today and you're focused on your goals. The fact that something that's supposed to be done has been done, no matter how tiny it is. And if it feels or looks like you've moved one step towards the thing that you're wanting to do, you've got a task list of things that are supposed to be done, and you've done at least one of them, all of those are small wins that get you to the big win. So you need to hold on to them. Do not forget them. So track the daily actions instead of the final goal. Look at what you're supposed to be doing and see what you have done, because even tracking that, or even listing the things that you're supposed to do, that itself is actually a step forward. And those are the small wins that most of us look past and see it as inconsequential, because we want the big win. We want the big results at the end for us to then suggest that, yeah, I am successful, or yes, I have managed to achieve. But those big results come from the small movements in the journey. Okay, so let's not forget measuring the small wins. The next one is ignore the timeline, and that sounds contradictory, but then it's actually important to let go of what you think, or of when you think success should happen. Let go of when you think things are supposed to happen. Now, we all want things instantly. We want everything now, instant gratification, but we need to try to let go of when things are supposed to happen. Those expectations are what then generate a whole load of disappointment and deflation within yourself. So try to let go of when things are supposed to happen and focus on what you're supposed to be doing, and just do that. right? Do what you're supposed to be doing and try to let go of when things are supposed to happen. That's the second part. And the last part of shifting your focus is to expect the plateaus. So ideally, what would happen is once you've started a journey, once you've started trying to reach some sort of goal, you want an ideal linear upward movement all the way until you reach the top of the mountain, essentially. But you want to expect that you're going to have some plateaus sometimes. Sometimes you might even have dips where it feels like you're moving backwards. Expect those, that there are some plateaus where it feels like you've moved for so long but haven't moved forward. You've moved for so long but you haven't gone up. If you expect that as part of the journey, it reduces your level of anxiety and it reduces the level of disappointment in where you think you're supposed to be. Okay, so attach that with the previous line where we say that you're supposed to ignore the timeline or when things are supposed to happen, and then expect the plateaus as well. But then you keep going. Regardless of those plateaus, you keep going. So understand that the slow periods are normal part of growth. Okay? That's the first part, which is the shifting of focus. The next part is protect your mindset. And this is very important because your mindset is what keeps you going despite the results. So how you view things, essentially reality is how you perceive it, and your perception of reality comes from your state of mind. So protect your mindset, and the first part of that is stop comparing. And most of us know that comparison is the thief of joy. Stop comparing. And I know it's not an easy thing to do because usually you base what success looks like on what someone else has achieved. You base what success looks like off what failure looks like on what someone else has done. And I don't want to be like that person. I want to be like that person. That's a level of comparison. But at the same time, you do not want to attach that. You do not want to attach yourself with it as a way of beating yourself up on, I should be there because look at what that person has achieved. That will take away your joy. Essentially, your path is different to everyone else's. And we always talk about staying in your lane. What you see from someone else's achievement is a tiny portion of what reality is in their life. Okay? What you don't see is how they got there, the things that they've had to do to get there, whether they were legitimate or not legitimate, whether they were easy or really difficult. You don't know that. All you're seeing is just a small portion of their life and what it's presented as. And in most cases, what they present as is not real. Okay, so this is the whole concept of Instagram lifestyle, where people take the most polished part of their lives and post that, and then we watch that and assume that this is what their whole life looks like, and then we beat ourselves up based on what someone else has posted. And many people actually generate an extreme version of what their life looks like, and it's not real. We know that. We know it's not real, but then we find ourselves doom scrolling and going through other people's perfect lives and thinking that's what their lives actually look like. And then we look at our reality of life and beat ourselves up. Okay, so everyone has their own path. You are in your lane, stay in your lane. So do not compare yourself with who someone else is today. Only compare yourself with who you were yesterday. That's the only important thing. The next part is review the past proof. Okay, so going back to that same quote I've just mentioned there, you compare yourself with who you were yesterday. Look at what you've managed to achieve. Look at what you've failed on. Look at what you've succeeded on. Analyze only your life on your lane and base your success or movement on that alone. Not what someone else has achieved, not what someone else has told you you're supposed to achieve. Okay, so look back at the hard things you've already finished, right? The things that you've already accomplished, and focus on that, and then realize that you are actually capable. And in most cases, people do ignore that because the hard things that you've managed to achieve, if you perceive it in a different way, they are nothing compared to the things that someone else has achieved. And this is the concept of thief of joy. You're supposed to look at the hard things you've achieved and be joyful and proud of the things that you've managed to achieve. But then when you look at someone else's success, you then take away your own joy because you're thinking that's where you're supposed to be. Okay? Finally, talk kindly to yourself. And this is the concept of mindset. You talk kindly to yourself. There's a great book called The Chimp Paradox, where the concept of it is you've got one voice on the left, one voice on the right. One speaks kindly, the other one speaks negatively. And what we're trying to talk about here is to listen more to the one that speaks kindly. Speak kindly to yourself, because you are the most harsh person to yourself. Most voices that you will hear are the ones that come from you alone. Now, whenever someone else says something that you don't like, the reason it feels painful is because you've already been saying that to yourself. Okay, because if you haven't been saying it to yourself, it doesn't attach itself to you as strongly. Okay, it's how you view it, how you have labeled it. And if it's something that you've already been saying to yourself, it will hurt even more. And the reason you're angry at them is because you couldn't internalize the anger of the things that you were saying to yourself. So you then externalize it and find a place to take that anger, essentially. But speak kindly to yourself, as well as going back through history to look at the things that you've achieved. Collect that data and then remind yourself of the things that you have managed to achieve. Think of all the challenges that you've faced before that are now all of a sudden inconsequential, and remind yourself of the things that you've managed to do in different aspects, the new places you've been to that you've managed to conquer, the challenges that you've faced that you've managed to get through, the difficult spots where once upon a time you thought, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this, but you did. Remind yourself of all of those things and be grateful of the things that you've managed to achieve, and remind yourself of that, and remind yourself on who actually got you through that as well, and be grateful. So speak kindly to yourself. Now, the final part is staying consistent. This is the most important thing. Consistency is what gets you to where you need to be. And this is something that most entrepreneurs understand, that it's not the smartest person, it's not the person who has the most resources, it's not the person who has the best connections that is successful, it's the one who is most consistent. Keep going. Despite any challenges that you have, whatever it looks like, you just keep going. The most consistent person is the one who's going to be most successful. So on the stay consistent parts, the 3 parts are: keep the routine. Okay, so you've set yourself up a routine, the things that you're supposed to do, whether it's on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on a monthly basis, weekly, yearly basis. Stay on that routine. If you've now discovered that this is the thing that you want to do and it works, do the work even when you feel tired. And this goes back to something that we shared on this channel as well. If you want to look at the concept between discipline and motivation, I'm going to attach the video up here. Feel free to look at that. But motivation is something that you do based on how you feel, okay? It is not reliable. Discipline says you do it whether you feel great or you don't feel great. It's something that needs to be is adjust your plan. Okay, so fix what does not work and change it. And as mentioned, you stick to the routine, especially once you figured out that it works. And if it doesn't work and you've identified something that doesn't work, or maybe doesn't work anymore and it was working all along, there's some adjustments that need to be made. You want to be flexible, so make those changes. Feel free to make those changes and change things as you go along. Some things worked last year and they no longer work this year. There's some changes to technology, there's some changes to law, there's some changes to anything. Adjust with it and make the change. Stick to a routine and keep yourself going. And finally, rest when needed. This is very, very important. And sometimes we tell ourselves that we just have to be busy. If you find yourself not doing anything, you're wasting time. But rest is required. Even God himself, when he was creating the world, he had a rest. The 7th day, he stopped, he had a rest. So rest is very, very important. It's required. This is when you rejuvenate. This is where you come up with even different ideas. It's an opportunity for your mind to actually step back out of the entire process, and you might be able to see things differently then. But if you stay in it and continuously tell yourself that I have to be busy through and through 24/7 for me to be able to achieve the things that I want to achieve, you might burn yourself out, and essentially you could take yourself 20 steps backwards if you find yourself in a position where you can't go forward anymore. So rest is needed. Take breaks so you do not burn out. Okay, that's it for today, guys. And this is the concept of trying to remember how to build that self-belief even when the results are slow. And those are the ways that I would suggest you do that. Hopefully you found this important or helpful in one way or another. Or if you find it helpful to someone else, please feel free to share it with them. And also like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos when I post them again. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again soon. Take care, guys.